Here's a few thoughts, or just a couple quick thoughts about a program called the Great Gama Protocol by Coach Pavel Macek. It really caught my attention, not because it's a revolutionary new training system. Actually, I think almost the opposite. It's incredibly simple, and that's probably what I like about it the most. The program gets its name from the Great Gama, a legendary wrestler who went undefeated for decades. And part of the legend surrounding Gama was his training. We're talking hundreds of bodyweight squats, hundreds of push-ups every single day. The protocol talks about him routinely performing 500 Hindu squats, 500 Hindu style push-ups. And now I'm not telling everybody listening to this to go and do 500 push-ups and 500 squats tomorrow. Please actually don't do that. But I think there's something we can learn from the philosophy behind it, because today training can get incredibly complicated. And as a strength and conditioning coach, I'm probably guilty of contributing to that sometimes. We're talking about velocity, force, periodization, exercise selection, load, volume, recovery, technology. All of that stuff matters. But sometimes I think we become obsessed with finding the perfect way to train that we forget to just train. And that's what I like about the Great Gama Protocol. At its core, the program is incredibly basic. The program has what it calls the big three: push-ups, squats, bridges, and that's it. And you're using these basic movements to develop mobility, strength endurance, movement quality, and just general physical foundation. And there's something refreshing about that, because sometimes you don't need 17 exercises. You don't need the newest piece of equipment. You don't need the perfect gym. You don't need huge space. You need your body and a willingness to do the work. The program actually makes this point: no equipment, no excuses. If you have a few square feet of space, you can practice, and I love that. But here's where I think the program gets even more interesting. The goal isn't to copy and paste the insane training volumes of wrestlers from hundreds of years ago. The author actually talks about finding a minimum effective dose. Basically, what's the smallest amount of training we can consistently do that still moves us forward? And I think that's a much better question than how much can I survive today? Because fitness culture loves extremes. Hardest workout, most calories burned, most reps, leave everything on the floor. And there's absolutely a time to push, but you can't redline every single day. You'll just burn out and not feel good. Eventually, you have to come back and train again. And that's probably my favorite idea from this entire program. There's literally a section called Consistency Trumps Intensity. That's it. That's the lesson. Because think about how most people approach fitness. They get motivated. Monday comes around, new program, new diet, new everything. They destroy themselves for a week, maybe two sometimes. Then life happens. Then they stop. A month later, they start over. The program references an old expression for this kind of inconsistent practice: 1 day hot, 10 days cold. And I think that's such a great description of how a lot of people train. Instead, what if you did less, but you did it consistently? 10 minutes, 20 minutes, squats, push-ups, throw in some mobility, maybe some strength work. Nothing spectacular, nothing worth posting on Instagram, but you do it again tomorrow, and again, and again. Now do that for 6 months. That's where things start changing. And I think that's the biggest or bigger lesson here. We spend a lot of time searching for the perfect program, but sometimes the best program is the one that's simple enough for you to actually keep doing. And that's why I really like the Great Gama Protocol. Yes, I like the exercises. I like the story behind it. I love the connection to old school wrestling and physical culture. But more than anything, I like what it reminds us about training. You don't always need more. You don't always need harder. And you definitely don't always need more complicated. Sometimes you need a good few movements, a reasonable amount of work, gradual progress, and the discipline to come back tomorrow and do it again. Consistency over intensity. Simple doesn't mean easy, and simple definitely doesn't mean ineffective. Sometimes simple is exactly what you need. Purpose drives intent.